been a while.
Yeah, I know. It's been a minute. Life has had its ups and downs for me, man. Um, hey, put it like this. I feel like I'm back on track, but last year, 2018, was crazy.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so 2017, end of 2017, I got married. 2018, my wife said she wanted a divorce. And while she was pregnant with my child, yeah, crazy, crazy
And
stuff.
that was not hormones talking. That was
Nah, her actual, I want a divorce. To this day, still the same way. I think we'll probably finalize the divorce between Thursday and next week. So
oh man, sorry to hear that. That is uh
it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
it is crazy. It is crazy. I
So
don't know. We'll probably like learn the lesson from that later on and be like, I'm actually kind of glad that happened. But
yeah,
while you're going through it,
it feels like crap.
I yeah, it always does. Always does, man. Always does.
Yep.
But
So I can't trip off of it anymore. It is what it is.
mm.
But I
Yeah, I
put beautiful
mean, you're
sun out of
getting
it.
back into the swing of things, so that's what's important. It's when you let it hold you down and kind of like you wallow in it and you sit and you like find all the negative things. That's when I feel like our light goes out. You feel me,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And depression is a real thing. Depression is a real thing. How do I know? Because
Oh
I
man,
dealt with it.
I'm battling with it today. I've been like I've been on a pretty good path. I have two whiteboards beside me, right? Like I
hmm
haven't even hung them up. That's how intense it's been. Like they're
Yep.
literally just like dining table, back of the couch, whatever, getting stuff done. I have an event coming up on the 19th to launch like the whole lovable brands thing that I've been working on. Projects aren't done, and I'm like worrying about, all right, if development's not done, and not only do you have payments that need to be cleared, but you have to move them onto new projects, and there's like a ramp up, ramp down time. Like,
Yep.
how is that going to mess with everything else? Yeah,
Pressure,
it's
baby.
fun, but then it's like, uh,
There's
some
still
days I
pressure.
wish I could just wake up and be like, yeah, you know what, this is what we got done today, and I'm like, all right, cool, I dig it. I don't have to worry about anything else other than saying, all right, they did their job. Here I am. I have cool people. But yeah, till I get to that point, just taking it one step at a time. Ain't really stressing about a lot of stuff. Can't really let that. I don't know. I mean, it makes no sense after a while because you're like, wait a second. I could have been doing something else with my time,
Yep.
right? Like I could have been actually working on that thing that I really want to get done. So yeah, that's kind of how I've been putting it into perspective. And then yeah, get out the house, shift things up, yeah, that kind of stuff.
Nah, that's important,
Yeah,
man. That's super
sure.
important to get up out the house and just get realigned with some good energy and some other people. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you stuck in your own thoughts, man, it will set you up
Oh,
for
that's
failure.
dangerous right there.
Oh,
Oh,
trust me, I know.
oh, not with the
So
way my brain thinks. Well, yeah.
so like I definitely wanted to get you on here because
Mm-hmm.
you have so much value that you shared not only with me, with other people on Facebook and just and your businesses and brands that you're like lifting up all together. So, I feel that a lot of people don't ever get to share their story of like why they started up or how they got into their passion. And I think
Okay.
that that's like a really important thing to know. What mishaps you dealt with in life early on, still struggling with now, how you're overcoming them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if you look at your journey over the time that you started and to where
Mm-hmm.
you are now, you're like, you picked up so many skills, invested so much
Oh yeah.
time, and sometimes people don't look at that. They still say, I got miles and miles and miles to go. But the journey that you've been on up to this point in life, period, whether it's business, a job, whatever it may be, is a story. You didn't wake up every day and just like not contribute anything. You had some type of interaction. And it
Mm-hmm.
may seem small to you, but to somebody like me who loves to listen, it could mean the world. So that's where I'm going with this, man. I want to start you off. Like, what are you doing now? And what got you to that point?
Um, man. So right now I'm scaling my branding firm, right? I guess working into that vision of being able to surround people with opportunity, to really see some cool creative projects come to life. Um, I think what got me here, and it's weird, is like that whole Orlando Business Journal thing happened. And like everywhere I go, people are like, man, that is so awesome. Congrats. And, you know, you're doing so well. You're so successful. And I'm just kind of looking there like, I still got to go home and reply to client emails. And I still got to like pay bills. I still got to do all this stuff. Like, no one's cutting me a big fat check from this just yet, right? Um, but I think my story has been, and I play with the whole Batman thing a lot, right? Um, but I think for me, mine is like that dark story almost. And a lot of people have that dark story. They just kind of want to shove it away and not think about it.
Yep.
But
And by the way, you're not allowed to shove it away and not talk about it on this right
exactly.
here. So you got to
Right?
share.
So for me, yeah, so I came to the States when I was like 2 years old, right? Originally born in Jamaica. So when it came down to it, I didn't have an identity in the country that I was born in. And I didn't really have an identity in the country that I live in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very hard because you're like, well, I'm a Jamaican, but Jamaicans don't necessarily view me that way because I didn't grow up and know about all the parishes and all about the struggles growing up and, you know, all these different things, right? And then, of course, you know, America has its own share of whatever. And it was kind of interesting because, like, just growing up, you're like, all right, cool. I grew up around a lot of Caribbean people. You know, that kind of helped with certain things. But then as I got out of that bubble, it was just kind of like, wow, life is wild. People are wild out here, right? And a lot of that perspective was also something that was influenced by the fact that I was raised in a 7-day Adventist home.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom was this really strict, really like religious person. And so, yeah, I'm not going to lie, I became sheltered, right?
Oh.
And then I was homeschooled at, you know, middle school, high school.
Ooh.
Made even worse, right?
Yeah.
There's one point I lost all the hair on my head before I was even 10 because there was like a fungus that got in my hair from sand, right? I got beat up on the playground, you know, end of elementary school by like these 5 big boys because I wouldn't share candy. So there was a lot of bullying, a lot of, you know, growing up, trying to like identify who I am, trying to find like what makes me me without necessarily saying, oh, I want to like, for the lack of a better phrase, kiss ass, right? I didn't want to be that person that was brown nosing, that sucked up to everybody else, that was the way, you know, most people approach being liked. And I didn't want to do that, right? Like at the end of the day, it was just like I wanted to be alone, so it didn't really matter. But when it came to getting a job, when it came to doing anything, or even running a business now, I knew that wouldn't be sort of I'm looking for. I guess the best possible way to do it, right?
Right.
And so a lot of the things in life kind of were nudging me to whether it's running a business, doing something, community organizing. Like, I mean, my most fun moments, and this is going to crack you up. The fun moments for me growing up were watching things like My Fair Lady, right?
Okay.
Or what's that other one? Sound of Music. Or going to piano practice, or going to drill team practice, or having to write some essay for my mom. That was fun for me, right? Going out, hanging out, or doing sleepovers and all that stuff. Yeah, we didn't do that. And it, you know, and even like, you know, it's funny because like some of my friends were like white kids or non-black kids, right? And or even some of the black kids, and their parents would give them an allowance. But I'm a single parent raised child, and that's not gonna happen, right? And so, being resourceful, I think a lot of things that I do in business now and being able to identify like problems or gaps in resources, being able to move the right like people and things into those places, they came from a lot of that pain of having to sit back and be like, well, I don't have this, I don't have $1 million, I don't have this huge budget, right? How can I make
How
something
can you do
happen
it?
out of that?
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's wild because like now people are like, oh, it's logical that you became a graphic designer and then you became a web developer and then you became a user experience architect. I'm like, no, not really. Because most people in my field don't want to go anywhere beyond where they are right now. Because why would a designer become a developer unless you want to make more money, right? Or you start looking at it and you're like, well, I'm a designer, I could do this. Programming is a whole other beast, right?
Yep.
Different side of the brain, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, and so for me, it was a matter of necessity, to be honest with you. The recession had just happened, graduating high school, going out into the job market, there's nothing there.
Yep.
Make it worse, I didn't go to college. On top of that, I'm living in the middle of nowhere, Florida. And yeah, so you look around and you're like, well, at least I got internet, right? And so one of my first businesses was actually creating and selling MySpace graphics, layouts, graphics, that kind of stuff. Did that for a couple years. Then Facebook came along, right? So, oh crap. If Facebook just turned 15, let's back this up some. Facebook just turned 15. So this is a really long time I've been on the internet. Like,
right,
I
right.
realize,
Think
right?
about time flies, man.
Yeah.
Flies.
Because like before MySpace, you had all the like MSN Messenger, AOL Instant Messenger,
Yep.
right? Internet forums. That was my life, right? Like that was a thing. You play games, you play pool on Yahoo Messenger with other people, or whatever the case is, right? And that's actually how homeschool kids found each other and connected, because they're like, wait, you're a kid and you're online during the day? Wait a second. Are you homeschooled too? And so, there are a lot of cool people that you met. And yeah, so did that. Went into the job market. First job was actually sales. Did actually pretty good at it as an introvert, surprisingly. But my heart wasn't in it, right? Started applying for every design position ever, right? I put together a little portfolio, did all this stuff, right? And man, I think one summer, and I probably, if I go back into that email account that I don't even use anymore, but if I go back in there, one summer I sent out well over 1,000 emails for design positions, right? And maybe out of all of those, I got maybe 10 interviews, right? Out of the 10 interviews, I got one really crappy position, and then one slightly less crappier position, right? So it was wild. It was just one of those things where you're like, okay, this market is dominated by non-Black people.
Right.
I think by now, maybe it's somewhere between 5%, 6%, but honestly, the last time I checked, it was less than 3% of my industry I represent, right? And that's before you take in, multiple disciplines, business acumen, any of that kind of stuff. You realize like, man, I'm alone, right? There's no one that looks like me. I go to conferences and there's just a bunch of people that are like, seize the moment. And I'm like, but the way my life is set up, right? The way life is set up for people who aren't so carefree is we can't just seize the moment, right? Like, at least not apparently.
Nope.
And so, yeah, I mean, it was a fun journey, like all those things mixed in together. You realize that, yeah, a lot of people do suck. But there are a lot of cool people out there too, right? There are a lot of people who have like goals and dreams and all these amazing things that they want to do. And I think for me, it was like watching a lot of the people I grew up with like want to do things, but have to put those ideas down because they thought it was impossible, right? Or they didn't see any examples of it. So they were just like, yeah, that doesn't happen for people like me. And so, yeah, it's been a while, what, 17 years roughly? So starting immediately out of high school, I think it was like by year 2 of high school, I like was fully just doing stuff online, making money, whatever the case is. Um, After that, it was just a matter of like, all right, I want to get out of this area. I want to, do other things. Got married when I was 20, turning 21. So yeah, the week before I turned 21. Everybody told me not to do it. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Fortunately, we're still together. Although there are some days where I'm like, why are you with me, yo? Like, of all the people that you could have been with, you're an amazing woman. Why are you here with me? So, yeah, I mean, now,
kudos and congratulations to that, man. Kudos and
thank you.
congratulations to that.
But I think at this point, it's weird because I'm sitting at the intersection of possibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like influence, I got it. Access, I got it. Money, it's getting there. But there's still those moments where I doubt, right? Like doing the next thing. Even if I have it all planned, even if I have, the team executing, doing things really well, I have those moments where I'm like, Lord, am I really like the person for this task right now? Are you sure that's me? Like I can name a million things. Like I don't like sales, right? I like building and creating. I want to be in, behind the scenes, right? Like even this, it's because we've chatted before why it's like, yeah, this is not a problem, right? But at the end of the day, it's like you're always going to still have those issues, those problems, those things where you're like, I don't know if I can. But I've found that if you take just that one moment and be like, well, I don't know 100%, but I'm going to see if I could do like this little piece right here. And then, all right, I did that piece. All right, let me try this next one right here. All right, that moved. Okay. Ran into a little roadblock. All right. Have I been trying to do this by myself or do I need to reach out and ask for help? Right. But those things aren't really present unless we train ourselves to like be that way. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think as people of color, it's even harder where we have to have this, what's the word? We have to have this facade almost, right? With this view, this is who we are, right? The non-threatening black guy. And that takes up a lot of time and energy, man. Like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so what? I was in the oven a little bit longer. It's okay. I'm fully baked. It's all right.
I like that reference.
Right? Like, it's okay. Don't be alarmed. The edges are supposed to be brown. Once you shove that aside almost and just kind of say, you know what? There's always going to be those people in this world that think I shouldn't be there or I shouldn't be on that level or whatever the case is. But I'm not doing it for them, right? God gives us our talents. He gives us, visions, dreams. Like there's always this text that sticks out to me. He says, old men will dream dreams and young men will have visions. Yep. And I think about it and I'm like, both aren't bad, right? Because the older generation, they may be dreaming about something that wasn't possible during their time, right? Or in the worst case scenario, they may be dreaming about a time when, everybody was the same shade, right? Who cares? Mm-hmm. But you have the younger generation that may be envisioning a much different future, right? They may be looking and saying, well, I'm passionate about video games. I'm passionate about drawing. I'm passionate about connecting with my friends, with helping them, with whatever the case is, right? I love research. I love this. But 9 times out of 10, no one is sitting down with them and saying, hey, did you know you could do this with your career or whatever? And most times we just kind of shove them, oh, you need to go to school. You got to figure it out. You got to get a job. You got to do all this stuff. But I think a lot of times they're just kind of like, well, I could figure out all the skills I need, but how do I interact with people? How do I bring that skill to the table and not be cocky and not be this ego-driven person? And that's the question. Those are the questions that I get a lot of when I talk in schools, right? And I'm like, so you don't want to learn about this cool client or this cool like programming thing over here?
The interactions, man.
Oh yeah, that's cool. But how do I do this over here, right? Like, how do I work with somebody I don't like?
Yep.
So yeah, I think like now it's like, all right, cool. The mission at first was to connect people, help them understand design, technology, how it relates to business. But then after a while, I'm like, do I really care about that? Like, I care about these things individually. But when I see a friend of mine saying, you know, I have this idea for this thing, or, you know, I'm a teacher and I see this problem with other teachers, right? And I feel, you know, we talk and these are the problems that we share and we wish there was something to solve. But then they stop and they go, but I can't do it. Then I'm just kind of like, why? Right? And as I dig in, they're like, oh, I don't have resources. I don't have support. I don't have this. And I'm like, well, I know this entire field back to front, right? What can I do? And the crossover, I think, is where I'm going to be enjoying a lot more of my time now, where I don't want to be just this influencer or guy online that's, oh, do you want to build your sales funnel? Do you want to make your brand better? Do you want to like go Google it, right? If you really want to learn something, go Google it. But if you really want to make a difference, you have to start the conversations that aren't happening. You have to have the difficult conversations. You have to sometimes bite your tongue when someone says something that goes against everything you know in your core to be true. And that whole empathy side where instead of looking at it and saying, oh, I don't like you, you don't like me, we can't do anything together. If we look at it and say, well, we both have this common problem as human beings on this earth. How do we solve that? Then we can get back to our petty differences, right? I think if we did more of that, the world would be a little less screwed up, right?
Yep.
Or maybe the people who are causing so much pain to everyone else wouldn't be so loud, right? So yeah, I mean, it's an enormous responsibility I have on my shoulder right now.
But
people
I
from all
mean,
over the world are just like interacting with things. They're, especially like Black people, dude. They're like, oh my goodness, somebody that looks like me, they have the chance of being featured, or they're doing this thing, or they're pursuing this particular goal.
It's inspiring.
It's overwhelming, man. It is. It's like, wow. So yeah, I really want to do things right. I know I'm not perfect. I know I haven't done things perfectly over the past, decade and a half. I failed 4 times a business, like to the point where, yeah, absolute failure. Like, grand announcement, all this stuff is gonna happen. It gets out there, complete crickets. And a lot of it was being young, right? Being stubborn and hard-headed. But then, after a while, like now I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, I see why I failed there, right? And then when I see that person, like, I'm going to quit my job to go start a business, I'm like, pump the brakes. Do you have a plan in place, right? Nope. Because that immediate excitement, it wears off, right? And especially if you're doing it alone, you see all these people hopping online talking about, yeah, this is what I was able to do. And then they don't tell you they have a team of people behind them. You're trying to compete with something that's just, yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty fun. Right now, I have the agency. I have the Always Upward movement. I have Wired Thinking, which is like more of my youth mentorship accelerator thing that's going online. We have the Just Us League, which is our tactical creative strategy team. Yeah, my wife has her stuff. I have other stuff over there on the board. Yeah, then the Lovable Brands thing that's here, and then over there that's content. Yeah, there's a lot that I'm working through, but all of it is pretty much centered around like, how do I surround people with that opportunity, with that insight, with something that will inspire them enough that they feel they can do something.
Yep.
And if they fall and they struggle and they feel like, all right, I don't know what next to do, they have an avenue to reach out for help, right?
Yep.
They have a community of people that they can, fall back into and say, hey guys, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I need help. Does anyone have any advice? So yeah, I think I want to bring a different breed of influence, branding, brand strategy to the board. I don't believe in the whole look at me circus acts, constantly dancing around, talking about like, look how successful I am. I bought this car, right? Like if you hustle hard enough, you could buy this car too. Maybe I don't want that car, right? Maybe I want to like hop on like Elon Musk thing to Mars. Maybe that's what I want to do, right? Or maybe I simply just want to go out into my community or my job or wherever I'm spending all this time, right? And make a difference in someone's life. Help someone not think about wanting to kill themselves, but think about, well, what happens if I stick around, right?
Yep.
What happens if I, give my voice? Because I'll be honest with you. Last year, I just in like the town that I live in, there were 3 suicides that I know of, right? One of them was the associate pastor at my church. And it's wild, right? Because you never really know or understand what a person's dealing with. And no matter how great you may think you are at something, yeah, things still happen, right?
Yep.
And it was a pretty big blow to our community. Week before Thanksgiving, like, yeah. And so when you look at it and you realize, honestly, the crap that we say matters. Like all the I don't even know how to characterize it, right? Like we deal with a lot of crap and a lot of it is unnecessary, right? Like a lot of the things that we were puffing out our chest and doing, is it really contributing, right? Is it really, taking into account? And I think I feel this the strongest when it comes to like coaches and consultants and people who say they do brand development. Because a lot of times it's these little challenges, right? Go take my course and if you'll figure it out, right? But this is what you've done based on your perspective. That darkness, that pain, right? Where all these things happen. I would say probably 2018 was the year where something really major didn't happen in my life since I was born, right?
Man.
So 29 consecutive years of things going back to back to back to back to back to back, right?
No, calm.
I mean, I'm calm because I have a 4-year-old. Yeah. But then also at the same time, it's just like, okay, I can freak out about things. And trust me, I do freak out about a lot of stuff. But I tend to do a lot of it internally, which isn't always good because that finds its way out somehow, right? Whether that's an insecurity, whether that's me being a little bit harsher than normal. And I may not even realize it because I'm so like zoned in, like, all right, this is what I need to get done. If you're in my way, I'm going to move you out of it, that kind of a thing. But then you just have to like take that moment and step back and say, you know what? A lot of us are trying to go the same direction, right? which is why always upward is like that thing for me where it's like we're all trying to level up. That's it, right? So if we can level up together, and if you're good at real estate and I'm good at design, and that person over there is good at finances, what could we do right here, right?
Yep.
Versus being like, oh, you're over there, my industry is better. Who really cares, right? If you want to talk about industries that should be getting their fair share and aren't, let's talk about teachers, right?
Yep.
Fundamental. Without teachers, we wouldn't have doctors, lawyers, scientists, anything, right?
Right.
And they get the most crap. And so it's kind of like, all right, well, what are our priorities? What are my priorities, right? Don't get me wrong, I enjoy having fun. I literally I have an obsession with SimCity Build It. But I still find the time to do the things that are necessary, right? Like playing SimCity, I'm sitting here and I'm like, hold on, city development, stores, like real estate, like thinking about how all these things come together. I'm like, wait a minute, right? So in a way, it's like I'm still technically working, but now it's like, okay, I'm working in a way that's fun. I'm not really thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, it's wild, man. So I think that was a really extended answer to your question.
No, this is perfect because, you know, the thing that I've been noticing as I've been going through and doing these interviews is that I can ask a question, but it's so deep and broad that people just literally they go where they want with it. And then I'm like, yo, at the end of the day, I'm gonna give the recording to you. Like I'm gonna post it on YouTube, but like give you the link and stuff like that. But it's gonna be yours because it's your message that you get to look back and you be like, yo, I had the opportunity to talk to somebody about things that one you enjoy, you experience, or things like that. And you might not be able to talk to your family about it. You may not be able to talk to your spouse about it. You may not be able to talk to your children about it. And, you know, because they'll be like, I really don't care, like in a sense, or they don't understand, or they didn't have that same pathway, or they just don't want to hear it. Like yesterday, I was taught, you know, people put me in the Christian category, right? They say, oh, you are a Christian. And I'm just like, well, what is that? Like, yes, right? I believe in Jesus, right? I call myself just a believer because I very heavily line up with the Christian values, but at the same time, it's like, do I not, I can pay attention to what Buddha says. I can pay attention to all the other cultures. You get what I'm saying?
And if you think about it, right, like historically or biblically speaking, the Tower of Babel, right?
Yep.
A lot of people forget that story.
They do. We were all together.
Yeah, right?
Working
and it's because
together.
We got cocky and we lacked the faith that we ended up in that predicament, right? And even like now, like I'll get in conversations with people who are Muslim, people who are, you know, Buddhists, people who are agnostic. And at the end of the day, you know what it all comes down to? People are like, I just wish people would treat others like a human being. And if you think about it,
the golden rule.
Jesus was not a Christian. Plot twist, surprise, right? That would
tell people that all the time. They're like, what do you mean he wasn't a Christian? I'm like,
he wasn't.
Christian came from the Pharisees.
Yeah. It was a slur. It was like a slur towards people who believed in him. Yeah.
Here we go. It's like when white people call us nigger. Like, and I'm like, so when we assume the name, that like, so that's what I'm like, no, Christian, he never called himself a Christian. Never.
And if you look at it, all the things that were tied to Christianity were like going against people who didn't believe in it, right? It had nothing to do with the love, the care, the humanity that he literally illustrated, right? And even at that point where they're like, yo, Jesus, are you here to destroy the law, the 10 Commandments? And he's like, nah, I'm here to simplify it for you. I'm actually going to give you just 2 simple rules. Love God and love your fellow man. And they're like, wait, that's it? And I'm like, yeah, if you really think about it, when you love someone, whether it's a child, a friend, whatever the case is, right? You want to get to know them,
Yep.
right? And what happens when you get to know that person? You're like, oh, okay, I actually want to be like you in this way, and this way, and this way. And then if I'm loving my fellow man, I'm like, oh, okay, well, and if I think about it, I want to treat people like how I want to be treated. Well, this gets really damn easy, right?
Yep.
Mind your business. Don't gossip, right? Don't stab somebody in the back. Don't
Yep.
kill anybody with your words or with an actual object.
Yep.
What more do we want, right? But then there's that whole ego thing that goes in where it's like, oh, if I say I do these things, I'm better than that person because you know what? Now I get to judge them.
Yep.
But then it comes back and says, yo, so about that judging thing that you like to do,
Don't do it.
you want to be judged?
Yep.
Because
You know your
with how
path.
you think you're judging people, we may want to talk about what's going on over here, right?
Yep.
So, like, and then I find as well, especially like team dynamics, corporate training, that kind of a thing, you find that the person that doesn't like the other person for doing something, that usually comes down to something they don't like about themselves, right?
True.
And so we're projecting our dislikes and insecurities often in other people without realizing it.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because at this point, like building this whole branding framework thing, like all the research and stuff that we've done over the years, it's like, wow, this is kind of dead simple, right? It's like, where are you coming from? What skills do you possess? And how are you engaging the world empathetically, right? And now it's going off into initiatives where, you know, we're going to be working with like local leaders to change how Orlando is viewed, change how the state of Florida is viewed. But if I looked at it and was like, oh, I'm going to change the state of Florida. Let's be honest. Have you seen the headlines that come out of this state? Florida man runs naked down the highway. Florida woman
Yep.
does, like, what? Are those people okay?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So,
And
yeah, I mean, it starts small.
yeah,
Always.
you gotta start small. And like that's the thing, like through these conversations, man, I'm allowing people to be as real as possible, say what they believe in, even think about what they believe in. You know, some people might like be like, for me, right? Here I was in the finance game last year, right? Building a business and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I was successful at it too, right? But then I was like, yo, like you said, is this really for me? I had to really internally look at myself. Is this driving me every day? Do I want to talk to clients about money and managing their finances? No, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to manage my own finances, and I wanted to teach them how to do the same exact thing and make a process out of it. I didn't want them calling me. If I wanted to go on a trip, I didn't want them calling me and bothering me. Hey, Will, how much money do I have in my account? You looking how much you got in your account. Like, why are you calling me about this? I didn't want to be bothered, right? So I was like, boom. And then when I went through the depression stage, I was like, yo, I built my business wrong because now I'm in this business and this business can't work anymore. When I got my own problems and now I'm going to try and deal with somebody else's problems, it's too much overload. I just went into a shell, didn't want to talk to nobody. I wasn't on social media like that no more. I just like had my head. And, you know, but when I really looked at it and like started coming back out again, I was like, man, one thing that I always loved to do was talk to people. And then I was like, do I go back to school for therapy? I don't know. Do I go back to school to, you know, go back to school? Like I'm an engineer. Like engineers can do anything. So like
Exactly.
Why I was like, here's a problem, let's solve it. The problem was me being myself and being in my own way. I knew I wanted to talk to people. I can talk to you right now, and that's what we're doing. Like I get the enjoyment out of connecting like this. I get to know you, what you're doing, where I can help you, where we can create an alliance, whatever it may be. Like, and through that, that's love. And love gives energy. So I was like, everybody likes to talk about themselves. Give them the chance to talk about themselves.
Surprisingly, I don't. Right? Like, I would much rather talk about anything around me right now.
Hey, you're doing a great job.
Like, I would even, matter of fact, talk about this cool little knitted Batman hat somebody gave me. Right? Like, I'd probably have more stories about how that thing is than like me. But for like the thing that I've been realizing though, and you touched on it, where it's like that story, the thing creates, love creates energy, all that kind of a jazz. I find that, a lot of people will look and be like, oh, I thought I was the only one having that problem. Or I was the only one, here feeling this way.
Yep.
And, I think allowing for people to have that opportunity to connect is more important than me wanting to go into a hermit shell. Because maybe if I don't go into the hermit shell, that may give someone the hope to make it through that day, right?
Correct.
That's one less family that's, feeling the pain of loss or whatever the case is. So yeah, I mean, it's tough because there are a lot of days I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. But at the end of the day, it's not really about me. So yeah.
And you got it, man. Like, think about it this way. So I realized, like, and it's all about introspection and learning about yourself. What I realized for myself, I'm the guy that takes an idea and I make it better. Am I the guy that comes up with the idea? No, I had to learn that about myself. I make things bigger, better, faster, and I will suggest and problem solve. Does that mean I will go out and do the work? Sometimes I will work hard with you, but I will not work hard for you, aka do all the work for you. That's not me.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. Nope. So everybody looks at me like a leader and things like that. Like, you're a leader, and it's because I will inspire people to chase their dreams. Like, if you tell me your dream, I'll be like, what's stopping you? All right, here's the solutions. Now go run after it. Let's go. I'm going to cheer you on. But I can't run that race for you. You get what I'm saying? So as I help, I don't know what this is going to turn into. Like, just me, this empathetically and being vulnerable with people, because I'm allowing you to share. We're connecting. People, I was talking to an atheist yesterday, like an atheist, and he's telling me he's had more moments of enlightenment and spiritual awakening than a person who's actually seeking that path. And it's like, God can use anybody.
I mean, like he says, there are many sheep that I have that aren't in this fold, right? And, growing up, one of the big things Adventists have is that they're better than everybody else. And I was just like, but how?
How? Who's making this decision?
Like, did God personally come down and say, your religion is better than them all? And he didn't, right? And he gives us things and tools and resources and talents for us to be able to say, well, it's not about the religion, right? When God created the earth, he didn't say, you know what, we're missing religion. Hold on. Which one do I pick? Is it atheist? Is it Catholic? You know what? He's going to do them all. No, he didn't do that. He literally was like, here's some awesome stuff for you, right? Enjoy it. And here's my one rule. Clearly, we broke that one rule. And here we are now, right? So it's wild. Like, it doesn't even matter. I can tell you, like, church community, normal community, business community, everybody just wants a place to fit in.
Agreed.
Some people want to be able to help out a lot more. Not everyone wants to be in, the limelight of it all. And that's all okay, right? But what's not okay is when we get into saying, oh, you can't help because you're not as skilled or pretty or have connections as this person, right? And one of the things that really annoyed me about like conferences, like I was telling you, is like I didn't see anybody like me, right? And it's hard for me to sit down and, especially when it comes to life experiences, be like, oh, that's cute. Your parents let you go out and play until the sun came down. Yeah, no, our parents told us to stay away from the windows. Big difference. Big difference. Right?
That's the shelter life on a whole nother level.
Right? Like you're there and you're like, oh, you come out and you see, you know, police caution tape. Oh, what happened? So-and-so got shot.
Yep.
Oh, damn. Right?
Yep.
And then make it worse. For me growing up, a lot of my friends were old people. By the time I started like hitting my teens, early 20s, they started dying because they're like 40, 50, sometimes 60 years older than I am, right? I think one of those ladies now is in her 90s, right? Like, so, you know, I was around a death a lot. We actually had a couple pastors die from our church. One of my best friend's dad, you know, he passed unexpectedly. So that pain, like it forms anger really quickly.
Oh yeah.
And that anger can cloud you. And you know, from the age of 3, I think I've been being trained to how to deal with anger or that darkness, right? And so this is back to that whole Batman thing where his origin story was dark, right? He could have became evil. It's very simple, very logical, actually, right? But he chose to fight for something and actually fight in a way that it wasn't, oh, look at me, right? He did that with his own personality as Bruce Wayne. But the Batman, it stood for something more. It could be anybody who stood for that belief. And so, yeah, I think hopefully by the time I'm done with all of this that I'm working on, whenever my last breath on this earth will be, that's what all of this will. It won't be, oh, David Yarde. It will be, yeah, always upward. Oh, do you know the origin story? Oh, yeah, it started as this little thing. Like, we don't even know who originally started it. Maybe somebody will come out and do something like, yeah, it started with this guy. Whatever the case is. Who cares, right? But I do
original story matters.
Yeah. Like, I just want to be able to see people do cool things, use their talents, make a difference, leave me alone, most importantly. Like, yeah. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I enjoy the community and people that I've been fortunate to be around. I'm just now starting to see like what is all capable with what I have. And it's exciting, it's terrifying, but it's one of those things where I'm like, this is what all this has been leading up to. It makes sense now. I'm a little less peeved that it happened, but I'm a lot more accepting that, okay, I have the fortitude or skills needed to do this, or I was born for this, however you want to put it. So yeah.
So let me ask you this, like, even balancing a relationship with everything that you have going on, and you're the father of a 4-year-old as well. You know, how does your family life get impacted by what you're doing? Do you feel that you're leaving the proper legacy?
Some days I don't. Some days I feel like I'm so deep involved with like getting the work done that I forget why I'm doing the work. Right. And then there are some days where I'm like, okay, I'm not doing bad, but I could be obviously doing better. So it really depends. I think as long as I'm communicating, keeping open channels of communication with people around, it's a lot easier. When I go into a silo, when I kind of like, oh, it's just me, blinders on, I have to do it all by myself kind of a mindset, I struggle a lot more, I find, all right? So yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just finding that balance. Luckily, we both run our company together.
Hmm.
So over the years, we've kind of put in like, here's office hours, or we're talking about like business stuff. Here's, outside of business hours. We pretty involved in like our local church, local community, local tech community. So we get to go out and do a lot of things together,
Hmm.
which I feel is a big importance to keeping any unit together.
Oh.
But then also, I think one of the things that's probably sometimes a monkey wrench is me being an introvert, right? And I need like a huge amount of time to like recharge and whatever the case is. And so a lot of it has just come down to balance and scheduling things and kind of like taking into account, all right, well, I just had 6 sales calls or whatever the case is. I'm going to take, a break and do something that doesn't involve me having to deal with people.
Yep.
So yeah, so music is pretty huge for me. Like that kind of helps me de-stress a whole lot quicker. And yeah, sleep. I love it. It's delicious. Not going to lie. Like I'm legit not one of those entrepreneurs that's like hustle,
No
hustle,
sleep,
hustle,
right?
hustle. But I'll be honest with you, if I'm in a zone and I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to stop now. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to go until I can't go anymore right now, right?
Yep.
Till this code on this screen start looking like Latin to me, okay? That's how far we're going to go here. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of balance, a lot of communicating, a lot of just, I think, being vulnerable with myself,
Hmm.
to say, you know what, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. But especially when it comes to apologies, right? I think this is something we struggle with as humans on a whole, especially as men on a whole, where we lack the emotional intelligence to really fix it right then and there. We want to kind of like prove, yeah, I'm this person or whatever, and drag it on for however long. Um, so I think a lot of that is like just really learning from yourself each and every day, right? Like yesterday was different, the circumstances, experiences were different. Today may be a little bit different. What did I learn from yesterday that I can put into today, right? And yeah, I wish it was like something super magical, but I think the hardest part is sticking to it. Where, yeah, you can do it today, then fall off tomorrow, and then not pick it back up till next week. But that consistent thing, when it happens consistently, it's like, okay, this is not that big of a deal. All right.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so, you mentioned that you were raised by a single parent, a mother.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel that has affected your life? Not only, just as it's affected your life, but also as a Black male, and then also as a father to a child now.
Hmm. So I know the most immediate thing is I can't stand most men, um, especially men. And, yeah,
Yo, I noticed that about myself too. I realized that I had a lack of trust for men. Like if you were like a grown man, like say somebody older than me, I don't trust
Mhm.
you. And
Mhm.
it's weird. And then like people my age, I'm cool with. Like I could trust you. Younger, I definitely trust. But it was the older men. I just
Mhm.
never trusted them. And when that hit me, I was like, yo, it shocked me. It shocked me.
I mean, there were some people that were like really cool as like older men growing up, but then for whatever reason was like, that vibe, that uneasy feeling in your stomach, you could never quite place it. um but yeah, I mean, just for me, what I saw was that like a dude most dudes are willing to have a kid, let the woman go through all this stuff, basically get her body ripped to shreds, and then turn around and not even take care of their responsibility, right? Or make
Hmm.
some excuse, or try to come back around later when they're older and be like, let me grant you some wisdom that I learned. Like, no, you can get back on that horse that you just rode in on and get out of here, right? And so I think that was the biggest thing that I had initially realized, where it was like, man, men kind of suck sometimes. Like, there's no empathy. It's just this alpha. I got to be bigger. I got to be the one that shows whatever. And then being raised by a single mother, it was just like going out with men also made me feel very uneasy. Whereas, like, I'll never forget, there was this client meeting, or potential client meeting, that we were kind of investigating, should we work together? And it was at a Starbucks, and every woman that came in that door, dude had something to say about him. And at one point, I kind of was just like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm literally legit done here. Like, I have no interest at all, because, hey, now I have a daughter. That's even worse, right? And so, I mean, yeah, there's no issue in acknowledging that somebody looks good, or somebody put in the work to, like, be fit and happy in their own skin. But there's that line where a lot of men cross where you're like, hold up.
It's cool. Yeah.
What's happening right now?
It's a line of respect, exactly. And you're pushing that. Yep.
And so, you know, the whole Gillette ad, right? Looking at that from a branding point of view, I'm like, really? We waited until men were getting called out to ask men to act on a higher level? That seems kind of lazy, right? Yeah, so that was the biggest thing. Also, just kind of relationships for me were difficult, trusting people on a whole. I was like, well, my mom did this by herself. Why do I need other people? I could just do this, right? Yeah, I mean, I think most of it was just like, I really don't trust dudes, don't understand what they're about in life, like that lack of empathy, emotional intelligence, the whole alpha male, look at me pounding my chest like I'm a gorilla. I wasn't like that. I would always get picked on because my hands were soft whenever I shook another man's hand. He was like, oh, you need to do some manual labor.
Hey, I got the same problem over here.
Well, I'm sorry. My hands sweat a lot. So it doesn't matter how much manual labor I do. The Lord has blessed me with a way to keep them soft. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where as time went on, it was just like, all right, I can't hate dudes forever. Not every dude is awful. A good chunk of them maybe, but maybe that's the room, or, you know, the thing that I should act a little bit better, right? And so yeah, people call me out on my stuff, like, oh, you know, you probably should have handled that way differently. And I'm like, you know, you got a point there. Sometimes I'm like, I don't like that. And then I'm like, oh, you know what?
You know where it's rooted from.
There, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it also taught me how to be resourceful, not rely on people to get things started. Also, watching my mom handle people growing up was quite impressive, because she was like this 4-foot whatever lady, just like handling these people, skinny Jamaican lady. Didn't matter who stepped to her, she would just kind of like find a nice, creative, very Christian way of telling them off. And yeah, I mean, growing up now, and then like growing up, seeing that, going through my own experiences, entering into my own relationship, those are things that I never really envisioned happening. But in my gut, it was just kind of like, all right, well, maybe I should give this a chance, right? Like, number one, I didn't think anybody really loved me that deeply, but here we are. So there may be something to it. And it's not like I've had this my entire life where like, oh yeah, that's my perspective. Probably the past like 3-5 years, I've figured that out, right? And a lot of that is just constantly going back and saying, all right, well, I'm not going to live in the past, but I do want to know what were the things that really affected me that are now when I view that situation, do they hinder me or they help me, right?
True.
And so, you know, a lot of times it's the mindset, you know, being told or not having, you know, certain resources growing up. You feel like that's the way it should always be, or that's the way it is for everybody, which is why it's important for these things, right? Where you're able to see, well, what is a journey someone else went through, right? What are the things that I can take from their story to build on top of mine, right? Because greatness is always built on like the shoulders of another person. Those two boys in the Carolinas created a plane. Now we have 747s, right? They didn't build a 747, but they got things to a tipping point where air travel could happen on that scale, right? And even before they did it, think about the people who made the parts that they then remixed and put together to make that plane, right? Mm-hmm. So the guy who made the lever, the guy who made the springs, right? All those different things that are going on. And so, you know, success isn't just for one person, or it doesn't happen by one person doing stuff. It's usually a remix or a collaboration of multiple people around a very similar vision. So yeah, I mean, all of that, all of those experiences, I think, have helped me to kind of be a little bit more observant about the world around me, to not be afraid to kind of, I guess, use my voice in certain situations, to be a little bit more stubborn than normal, depending, right? But then at the end of the day, I've also seen where it has enabled me to be able to say, all right, you know what? That's cool. You don't want to work with me? All right. I don't really care. I'm going to go find somebody else. I'm going to do the next thing, right? And of course, raising a kid, I'm like, well, I definitely don't want to be anything like my dad, right? I want to be there for her special moments. I want to be there for the times where she actually needs me the most, right? I don't want to be that person that shows up later on and I don't know what she's been through, but here I am trying to give advice, talking about, you know, this is what she should do or not do with her life. And I mean, even if you had a great childhood, you shouldn't be trying to vicariously live through your child anyway, right? Mm-hmm. You're there to guide. It's a gift. You're supposed to protect, nourish, enrich it with the things it needs to take the baton from you and move things forward. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I approach it. Every day is a little bit different. Some days are a little bit more intense than others. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, everything is an opportunity. How am I using that opportunity? Am I being grateful for it? Am I complaining about it? Because if I'm being grateful, then more opportunities are going to come. If I'm being, you know, complaining about it, opportunities are going to dry up. They're going to stop. And then I'm going to be in that place where it's like, oh, nobody likes me. Well, maybe I wasn't a person that was likable or lovable to somebody else. And after a while, like that bad apple in the bunch, they're like, well, you need to get out of our bucket of our bushel of apples, right? Just get out. So, yeah, one day at a time, one step at a time, constantly, I would say, curating to have the right people around me, right experiences, things that uplift, enrich, help me to think bigger, bolder, supporting other people. Because I find a lot of times when I ask someone, well, what's stopping you from solving that dream or whatever, it helps me realize stuff that I may have been like using to hinder myself, or things that I may have started working on and stopped because I was like, oh yeah, that's stupid. No one has that issue, right? And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of the projects that are going on and happening probably over the next, you know, couple years, I wouldn't say they're entirely new. They're just, I guess, the timing is right for them. And so now they're coming out. And then, of course, new ideas flow in, things evolve, change, adapt. So I'm very curious to see where things go.
Yeah, you're going to have a bright future ahead of you for sure. And so on the aspect of, you know, you mentioned that you were an introvert earlier. Like, but you keep on mentioning the desire to connect with other people and help other people. Like, how does an introvert go about that? Like, because that's odd, like that connecting with other people or just putting yourself out there to talk to other people. Usually introverts stay to themselves. They want to be, you know, they're perfectly fine and they love themselves. They're not bored. They know what to do about themselves.
I don't really know how it happens, but I find like if I'm talking about tech or design or creativity or whatever, it's super easy. Doesn't matter who's around me. Um, if let's say I go out to give a talk somewhere, I don't know anybody there. I'll try to make like one or two friends, especially if they're gonna be in that talk. Kind of get to know them, so I don't feel like, oh, I'm going in this like blind or alone or whatever the case is. Um, but I find a lot of times, as long as I'm around like my happy zone, genius zone, lovable center, or whatever you want to call it, it's easier for me to talk to people about things. One-on-ones are really easy for me,
Well,
um, especially if like I know that person and I have a very common interest, common vision for things and stuff like that. Um, and then after a while, like I don't know, I just don't think about it. Like I just
well,
start talking about this thing, and then after a while, it's just kind of like, okay, it's not that bad. So yeah, I mean, it really depends. Luckily, when I go out to most networking events or something like that, I'll know at least one person in the room,
well,
and then they'll introduce me to somebody else. Um, I don't even have to ask. Now it's a little bit weird where it's like getting featured in publications and random people start conversations with you. It's like, hold on a second. How do I do this? So I'll take a moment before I respond to anything, right? Like I
right.
don't immediately just jump in and be like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, like I try to understand, all right, if they added me on LinkedIn, did they send me a message? What's going on here? What are they doing? What can I start a conversation around? And I think a lot of it is just around that anxiety of this is going to be awkward or this person is going to hate me, which is like the noise in your mind sometimes. Or sometimes people are just downright draining, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely is like where you're putting yourself, um, how close it is to like that lovable core that you like operating out of. Um, and yeah, I mean, everything else from that point is it just depends on the situation, really and truly. But yeah, I mean, if I'm going to meetup groups or like local networking events, I'm seeing a good amount of the same people. I'm meeting new people at the same time. I'm building that one-on-one relationship with them. It it becomes a little bit easier as time goes on. Um, and then after that's all done, or even like after this is done, I'll probably just go and chill for like a couple hours, listen to music, work on some code, write some stuff, like got, a couple other meetings that we're probably gonna do. And that's it, right?
Well,
Um, so I try to operate out of that lovable core. I try to find the things that allow me to, be able to build a bridge to someone else. Whether it's someone, I mean, as a creative, I can get away with this a whole lot because you have so many creative industries, right? You got people who bake cakes, you got people who, can sew. And once you start that process and you see, their process of doing stuff, it feels familiar and you start, wanting to share and connect over that same creative thing. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
I just try to find what is a common ground, um, and communicate to that. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And so, as we're wrapping up, because I know we've been on, so two last questions for you. Um,
All right.
One is, feedback. Like, how beneficial do you feel this was for you? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
second question is, would you like to do it again?
Hmm. So I would say it was pretty beneficial. Actually got me thinking about a lot of stuff that I didn't think about that kind of
Mhm.
tied into this journey. Um, and yeah, I would probably do it again. I mean, yeah, if it helps somebody, uh, as much as I hate seeing my face and hearing my voice, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. I enjoy getting the messages that say, you know what, I bumped into a piece of your content. I was struggling with this thing, or I was feeling this way, and it helped, right?
Oh,
Because all I have to do at that point is say either I'm glad it resonated, what really stood out, and then push the conversation on them so they're sharing with me.
I got
Um,
you.
First, like fish things out. Like, what's the problem? Do you work with a coach? Like, I don't want to sell you anything. Like, do you think I actually want to sit here and sell you this thing? No. But just so you know, if you want to buy that thing, you can. Yeah. So, yeah, I would definitely do it again. If it's with you, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man, it would be with me. It's just like I said, from these, like, and if you allow me to share it, like on YouTube, whether it be private or whatever, or if you allow me to open up, I definitely will, because I love storytelling. I love stories. I freaking love stories. So if I can like put like together like a great caption, a description in it, like you talked about fatherhood, being raised by a single parent, being a black male, not trusting men, you dealt with it. I've dealt with it also. Like, just business overall, being creative and supporting a family, wanting to be a father, wanting to be a husband, wanting to, care about God and what he has and love and help other people. Like the stereotypes that are surrounding us, man, like there's other people like us and they're like, oh, wow, somebody else is like me. And I like this. I would have never thought. I never would have thought.
Yeah.
I remember I was with my god sister and she was getting her hair done and her hairstylist was like, oh, you guys are such great people. You're good looking. And we were just looking like, we were laughing at her because we all had our own stories. And me and my god sister, we felt ugly. We felt broke. We felt depressed, all that. And she's there. We're looking at her like, oh man, like she got her stuff together. She got her business like that's on fire, like all this stuff, like doing hair and stuff. And come to find out, she has the same insecurities as us. And I just sat there and asked a question. And that's what inspired me to be like, dude, you got something here, because just what you did, you gave out value, you gave out inspiration, you gave out messages, you just shared so much that it's like, give people a platform to share what they have. There's no way people went through life and didn't experience and don't want to share. If you care about anything, if you possess any ounce of love, you want to go out and make an impact in this world by just giving something to somebody, maybe a word of encouragement or whatever. So I was like, I gotta provide this opportunity for people. It doesn't have to look fancy, right?
No.
It doesn't have to like there's so much behind it. I was weird, like you said, you're gonna always try and give your best, but I was like, do I need titles and how does it look like this and all that? And I was like, no, I just want the content to be great.
Super simple.
Yep.
Like,
just jump in.
And I think that's the thing that like I've been hammering home to myself, especially as we design out like some of the campaigns for our firm and whatnot. It's like, I just want it to be simple. Like, I don't need like over the top stuff. I want it to be very simple. I want the content, the messaging to shine through. There's so much that, I don't know. I just find it hard to know that. I don't think it's our fault. Not 100%. I think that we start out with that intent to like be helpful, to be this way. And then something happens between like middle school and end of college where it's like, you know what? It's just about me and this corporate ladder and how much money I could put in my bank. And I think that's a first world problem in a lot of cases, because if you look in a lot of other countries, they're like, oh, this job, this thing that I'm learning is going to give me the opportunity to go back and help my community. Correct. Right? Yep. And it's not about status. It's about uplifting everybody else. Yep. Right? And so, yeah, like looking at the sacrifices, my mom made, my grandparents made, it would be a disservice, very much a disservice, if I didn't do something with that. So, yeah.
Okay. I guess I have one more question, just one more. Is there anything that you fear?
A lot. Um, I think the biggest thing that has been kind of keeping me up a lot lately has been leaving this earth without really finding out what my true potential is. Right? Um, like it used to be, being alone, people not liking me, all that kind of stuff. But then those things happened, and I was just kind of like, huh, I'm still alive. Who knew? Um, but then when I started looking at like my work, creative ideas, things that were possible, seeing other people accomplish things or whatever the case is, um, hearing stories about like my elders and people before me. And it was just kind of like, well, they had a lot less opportunity than I had, really and truly. Why can't I do something with that? Right. And yeah, so I think for me, it's like really, I think my fear is holding back, leaving this earth, and I held back. That would probably be it. So,
it's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great one, man. And what are you going to do to overcome it?
Well, what I have been doing is just leaning into it, man. Like, literally just, like, you keep seeing me glance over at this board. It's just like I'm looking at the things that there's a quote at the bottom that says strategy. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Strategy means nothing without execution. So execute something. I think the rest of it is like, yeah, so execute hard, messy, or whatever the case is, or don't overthink your creativity. It's probably like two things that I wrote and mashed it into one kind of at the bottom there. But yeah, that's kind of where I think my mindset has been. Like, I've been in the whole depression toilet bowl ring. And yeah, some days are better than others. But truthfully, it's just kind of like, well, I know I'm going to regret that feeling. Like if I didn't do something towards what I say I believe in, what I put out into the world and say, this is what I'm working on. And so it kind of sometimes balances things out. But yeah, I don't know. It's just really a one day, one step, one moment at a time kind of thing. Always making sure that I'm not trying to do it alone, because I've learned from my engineering days that I could sit here and try to figure this problem out for 6 hours, or I can probably reach over and be like, hey, I need an extra pair of eyes, and we solve it in 30 minutes, right? So yeah, I'm trying to be a lot more proactive in dealing with things, especially when it comes to me taking care of myself. And making sure I'm in the right mental space, emotional space, spending more, time with my tiny human. Yeah, trying to do the whole family man thing, which is kind of weird. And then I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to rewrite the rules on it, right? Like, let's just do that instead. Okay. So yeah, I think being a lot more proactive. Of course, writing a lot more. There's a point where I kind of stopped writing, which was like, a little bit of my therapy. And I would also say, don't shy away from seeking professional help, right? I think a lot of people look at it and say, oh, well, if I go see this person, people are going to think this way about me. Who cares, right? I would rather have my stuff sorted out and be okay, right? Have the tools and everything that I need to be the best version of myself, then sit around, let it eat away at me, and then for whatever reason, allow somebody else's, I guess, opinion to hold me back from being something that I could be, right? So, yeah, I think over this past year, I've kind of stopped caring a lot about what people think. It's kind of weird, but at the same time, it's like, oh, that's nice. You don't like this idea that I'm putting together? All right, well, it wasn't for you. So the people it was for, they enjoy it, they like it, they grew from it, right? Maybe there's some things I'll change about it, but I'm glad you had that opinion,
Oh.
right? And I've also stopped taking advice from people who aren't actively doing anything with themselves, right? Like if you aren't blood, sweat, and tears doing stuff, like out there risking yourself, doing whatever the case is, and you're just that backseat driver, like, oh, I think that you should do this. People would like that more. Okay, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. All right, then.
Keep your mouth shut.
That is exactly what I'm going to do with your advice. Nothing.
Yep.
But then there are those people where they're like, yo, David, from the outside looking in, I see you're going down this road. I've been there. You may be feeling this. Those are the people I'm going to be like, you know what? Keep talking. Let me get my notebook. Let me write this down. Right. All right. I'm going to listen to you. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it is. Being more proactive, having the right board of directors around me, and then just stop overthinking things and get them done. Yeah. So, yeah.
Man, I just want to tell you, I appreciate you taking the time out to do this. I've learned a lot. I resonate with you a lot. And, definitely I would look forward to doing another one because I feel like there's so much more I could learn. And now that you've seen how this goes, like, I'm sure there's going to be more you want to share in the future. And something I do want to hit on in the future is the depression thing because it is real, and mental health is real, and seeking professional help is real. So, just coming on to the tactics and running businesses and still have to be creative, not only for yourself, but your family and then the people whose lives you want to impact. That dealing with depression during that time is tough. So, I want to learn more and dive into that. And I'll probably think of some other things, but yeah, man, thank you so much. I recorded it and I'm going to upload it up to YouTube. Hey, memories are great when they're captured, so we just created one.
This is true.
Thank you.
I'm glad I could help out,
man. I appreciate you, David. Have a wonderful night, man.
You too, man.
Thank you. Bye.